Really mesmerizing. Love the ring along the outside. Looks great, really bright, plenty of diffusion. Hey everyone, Digital David here. Today in this video, I'm going to be checking out the Be Quiet PROC 2 FX Black CPU Cooler. Be Quiet did send me the sample, but I want you to know that any opinion expressed in this video is strictly my own. That being said, if you're interested in this product or you want to find out more about it, the link to it will be in the video description. Here's a look at the retail box and packaging. Everything's very simple and straightforward. On the back, they walk you through a couple of key tech specs. This comes with one 120mm light wings fan with the nice RGB ring. You'll also see we have a 4 heat pipe design right there on the back too for our air cooler. Now let's go ahead, let's open it up and see what's inside. Here are all the contents. First up, we have our product literature with their customer service and contact information. This walks us through everything we need to know about getting everything set up and installed. They also walk you through each individual part and component right there. Here's some Intel instructions depending on your Intel socket. Then we have our AMD instructions right there at the bottom. This supports AM4 and AM5 for AMD, and it supports the latest and greatest from Intel, the LGA 1700. Can't forget about the LGA 1200, and they also have additional Intel sockets supported. 4 fan brackets here. Then you'll see all of our Intel and AMD hardware that we need right in this nice kit. Here's the one included 120mm fan with our RGB ring around the top. This is the Light Wings fan. 2000 RPM if you're wondering. Be Quiet logo and branding, fan directional arrows, 4-pin connector right there, and then there's our RGB hookup. And then lastly, you'll see the cooler itself with Be Quiet's logo and branding. Take a look at it from the side. Here's a look at it from the other side. Back side, front side, all that good stuff. You'll see our 4 copper heat pipes down here with our pre-applied paste. So you'll see we have that all set and ready for us to go right there with our CPU. So make sure you keep that on until it's time for installation. Now let's go ahead and get this installed. We got our PC built and cooler installed. Let's look at everything up close. Entering into the build, you'll see front and center our cooler right there with our lovely RGB fan. PC's just at an idle now, but everything came together really nicely. So RTX 3080 FE, AMD 7700X CPU underneath there, some Lexar DDR5, MSI Tomahawk motherboard. Beautiful Be Quiet Shadow Base 800 case right here. Comes with triple fans, plenty of room for however you want to configure your build. See the other side of the cooler there. See the fan clips, how we have everything connected, routed through the back. Get a feel for the space between your RAM slots. We have plenty of room without even having to remove the fan with this cooler. There's our bracket down there, 2 screws to mount it. Maybe you can get a feel for the height here too, compared to the side of the case, but plenty of room there. Great fit. And now we got our light off look here. See it in the dark, that fan spinning. Really mesmerizing, love the ring along the outside. Looks great, really bright, plenty of diffusion. Makes me want to add a couple more of those fans to this build. Really adds a nice touch. Get a feel from the side profile of it. Looks really nice. We have all the panels on our case. The PC's powered on. Everything's just at an idle. It's under no load. Our CPU of choice is the AMD Ryzen 7 7700X CPU. Currently, you'll see our temp is right around 38 degrees Celsius for our CPU. Again, that's just going to be at idle. And we have our GPU temp at 32 degrees Celsius. we're going to go ahead, we're going to stress both those out under a full load to see if we can build up enough hot air in there and how the cooler is going to be able to perform on our CPU. All right, so it only took a couple of minutes to hit that 95 degrees Celsius threshold for our AMD 7700X. Don't worry, that is all by design. It's how that chip is engineered. So you'll see that everything is working as it should. What we can look at right now, though, is our speed. We're right at about 4.6 gigahertz. That's still above the base clock of 4.5, so that's great to see. But compared to some other coolers, from experience, we can typically get this CPU to around 4.7, 4.8 gigahertz in a similar test and capacity. So that kind of helps you gauge where this stands, but a lot of times those coolers could be 2, 3, 4 times as expensive, and they'll be basically your all-in-one system. So for that being said, it's really just a trade-off of how much do you want to pay, and when you're stressing your CPU under a full load, in this case if you're doing AMD and you're at that 95 degrees Celsius threshold, what sort of speeds do you still need out of your CPU? So I'd say for most people, this is going to be good enough, but at the end of the day, it's really something that only you can decide. You know I'm not going to miss a chance to get the FLIR camera out, so here's our cooler. Take a look at the top, right around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll look down towards the bottom at the board. You'll see it's definitely hotter there, that 110 degree Fahrenheit. Cooler's looking good though. Let's take a look at the fan, bearings, all of that. Everything's running still nice and cool. Obviously our GPUs can have some hot spots there, closer to 150. Let's go on this side. We'll see if we can get closer down to the mount and where the socket is. In about that 105, maybe 110 degree range if we're lucky. Right there, but doing a great job dissipating that heat. And you'll see it's warmer toward the bottom as you'd expect. And then it gets cooler and cooler up at the top as there's more room for that air to dissipate and get cooled off by the fan, and how it's routing that nice cooler air in from over here and directly through the cooler and out the other side. After installing and using the Be Quiet PROC 2FX CPU cooler, let me share with you my final thoughts. I'm really happy with this cooler overall. There's really not much to nitpick about it. I think the price to performance ratio is where it needs to be, so I'm very happy with this cooler overall. The sprinkle of RGB is a nice touch too. I like having RGB in my builds. I actually wish we had another fan, but the good news is they give us 2 extra brackets, so they could pinch margins and pennies and all that stuff, but it's nice to see that they were thoughtful enough to give us this in the future. If we want to add another fan, we can do that very, very easily. So nice touch, Be Quiet. Love to see just those little simple things that often get overlooked, but it performs great. It's very quiet too. It lives up to Be Quiet's name, so you'll be hard pressed to hear anything out of this cooler. I guess if you're stressing it to 100%, you'll hear some airflow and movement from the fans, but depending on the rest of your build, what parts and components you're using, those things, like maybe of a different brand exhaust fan, they'll be way louder than anything with the cooler itself. So just make sure you got a CPU that fits under that 150 watt TDP, and you'll be all set and ready to go with a cooler like this.